The other week, I looked at all the Premiership rugby stadiums for 2021-22. This week, I'm going to look at all of the Rugby League, Super League stadiums for 21-22. So hopefully there's some interesting ones. Let's check it out.
The Super League is England's premier rugby league competition. But, oddly enough, there's also a French team.
Yeah, think about that. That doesn't make much sense, but I suppose in the English Premier League for football, we have, well, and in the English system, we have two Welsh teams, so yeah, whatever.
There are certainly some interesting stadiums in this league, and some you may have seen in earlier videos. We are a bit late with this video, the season has already passed the halfway point. But better late than never, as Shrek once said. Here are the Super League 2021 stadiums. The Menderhose Jungle, home of the Castleford Tigers.
Welcome to the jungle. We can fix your hose. If there is a crack or leak, we can get it closed.
I don't know if this is a fair assumption to make, and I don't want to offend, I don't want to be rude, but because of the North-South divide with Union and League, I would assume, just assumptions, I would assume that the Rugby League stadiums are a little less, a little smaller, maybe a little bit more knocked up randomly, together, and if that makes sense. That's just an assumption. We'll find out.
I think that was a song by the Kinks. I'm sure they play it frequently at this ground, but I suppose the Jungle is an appropriate name. It's a little rough around the edges, and it's the home of Tigers. But maybe Concrete Jungle is a better fit because it's made up of mostly concrete terracing.
I would assume they call it so quite often when people call something a jungle, as in a stadium, a jungle, it's normally because an atmosphere can get quite good. Yes, it's a concrete jungle, a lot of concrete. You can see, I assume a lot of it is standing space rather than seating. There is a seating area there in that terrace, but quite often I get the impression when they call it something a concrete jungle, it's either something like a car park or it's concrete with a bit of atmosphere. The atmosphere is there. I might be wrong, might be right, but that's normally what comes to my mind when someone says a concrete jungle in relation to a stadium.
In fact, this old-fashioned covered section of the main stand are the only seats in the house. But if they're playing that kind of music, it makes perfect sense. Everyone will be dancing.
That looks
Stade Gilbert Brutus, home of the Catalans Dragons. I don't think you needed me to point it out, but this is the French one.
I was going to say, yeah, the houses, it just looks a little bit more decadent. Is that the right word? I don't know. The style of the roof looks nice because obviously the temperature is probably a little bit nicer as well.
And it's not even close to England. It's way down south.
Christ!
As you might expect by the name. Dragons are native to southern France.
So I know I'm stopping this, but that is... I'm sure Rugby League, Super League struggles with financial problems as it is. And they've got to travel all the way down there. It is a nice looking stadium. For a smallish stadium, it's actually quite nice.
The stadium is a bit of a mismatch of different styles. That's because the two largest stands were added in the mid-2000s, which tripled the stadium's capacity. And because of the close proximity of the road, it's left with this large gap in one corner. The French seem to like that crinkle-cut style of roof.
I quite like it.
Not sure why. As long as it's sea salt and balsamic vinegar, I don't care how they cut it. An interesting stadium though.
It is. I really like that, and I've said in previous, in some of my VR Monday videos where I look at stadiums. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out. There is a playlist. I like the roofs that have I can't even think what you call it, but like the crinkle cut type effect. It makes it look airy. It makes it it's it's a nice hot country if they have roofs like that. And I think it's just it's like a light modern sort of look. Oh.
John Smith Stadium, home of the Huddersfield Giants.
That's alright.
Are those roofs really sky blue, or are they just giant mirrors? Wait, no, that can't be the case. This is Yorkshire. It's probably grey and miserable. Oh, I stand corrected. What, you think there's no sunshine in Yorkshire?
That is really nice. I really like the blue roof on that. That's really nice. It's different. It stands out. You can clearly see that from a distance.
It's the stereotype. But the Super League's played over the summer. It can get as high as 20 degrees sometimes. Me friend's cousin nearly got sunburnt at a game once. Alright. I do really like the look of those arched roofs though.
I really like this.
The north stand is taller than the south, and the west stand is taller than the east. What that does mean though is that the trees on the adjacent hill form the backdrop on that side.
I've said this once again, sometimes the backdrop of a stadium can make a huge difference. In the VR videos, I looked at the Blundstone Arena down in Tasmania. The views of the mountains and things are amazing. So you can just imagine sitting there with a glorious view. And it just adds to everything with the stadium. It really does add to the effect of it. And I think this is similar. It's a real nice, unique kind of oval stadium. Almost matches a half of a rugby ball, doesn't it? But with the backdrop as well, that really just tips it over the edge and really makes it brilliant.
MKM Stadium, home of Hull FC.
That's a nice one.
It's another somewhat modern stadium, but this one's a fully enclosed bowl. However, it's not boring like some others in the country.
What's nice about this is they haven't. So although they've got it looks like they've got the taller stand there, and they haven't just it's not completely disconnected or anything. They've done it's like a little car vent, just to raise that up. And actually, I think that looks quite good. It doesn't look out of place. It's not disconnected or anything. It's a real nice modern looking stadium. I'm pleasantly
For starters,
surprised.
it's asymmetrical. And on that larger side, the roof canopy kind of does its own thing, which looks great.
I think
As
so.
does the interior, which matches the kit of both teams that play here, Hull and Hull City. An interior made up of mostly black seats seems to always look good, but I think this one might be the best of the lot.
A lot of these modern stadiums, or fairly modern stadiums, they really are going with that oval, that oval roof shape, aren't they? And the stand.
And not far away is Hull College Craven Park Stadium, home of the Hull Kingston Rovers. It's a unique layout.
I think Hull
That's
FC
largely
have got
due
a
to the
better
fact
deal
that it
there.
used to host speedway and athletics events. But it's only really to the south where it's noticeable. You might not have noticed, but there is actually a small terrace in front of those trees for the away fans. The further north you go in this stadium, the more advanced the seating gets. The Colin Hutton North Stand is very modern and it has these red towers. It's not really of major importance, but I like them.
This sort of, only because I live local in my hometown at the moment, well, where I live, this sort of reminds me a little bit of Eastleigh Football Club. But they're conference level. They're a conference level football team. They've got a little bit of money, to be fair, but it sort of reminds me of a conference football club, sort of standard stadium.
This place has plenty of character.
Maybe League One.
Emerald
that's obviously
Headingley Rugby
cricket.
Stadium, home of the Leeds Rhinos. You'll notice something odd about this one straight away. It has an attached cricket stadium. Kind of. The north stand is just one building that is shared by both stadiums.
That's cool.
The adjacent south stand is built in a similar style, but a little less Siamese. Also, the lower tier is a terrace and the top tier is seated. You're out of luck if you're an away fan visiting the ground, because you have to put up with potentially standing in the rain on this uncovered terrace once again. Oh, and I should mention that it's the largest Rugby League specific stadium in the country.
Great tactics by Leeds Rhino to stick the away fans in the stand area there without any roof. Great idea. Make them suffer. See, It's not bad, but it just feels like they haven't finished the job. They've got the three main stands, but they've not linked the corners up, and it's like they haven't finished the job. Just in my opinion, of course. Oh, I'm sure it's a great atmosphere, though. I'm sure, especially knowing Leeds, Leeds fans, I'm sure will create such a good atmosphere.
Leigh Sports Village Stadium, home of the Leigh Centurions.
It's just a box.
It's part of a larger sports facility that includes all sorts of things, such as an athletics track. Unlike the last one, there's not a whole lot that differentiates this stadium from numerous others around the country. That brick, glass and metallic cladding facade is a dime a dozen.
How often? We saw this with the union teams, where they've got one stand almost, which has all the kind of officey type areas and whatnot, and looks fairly modern. This just looks like you're going into maybe a shopping centre, or you're about to go into a DFS sofa shop, something like that. That's what it looks like. But there's so many grounds that have this, and it looks completely different from this side of the stand to every other side. It's like I said, from this view, you could be nowhere near a stadium.
But nevertheless, it looks pretty good and it's a fine facility. AJ Bell Stadium, home of the Salford Red Devils. Ah yes, if you watched the Premiership rugby video, you'd have already known that the Red Devils play here. Interesting that the rugby union team that plays here, Sale Sharks, represent another town. But both Salford and Sale are part of Greater Manchester, and are an equal distance from the stadium more or less. 3 of the stands are fairly typical, but the much larger main stand is quite distinctive.
There we go, that's what I was saying before. How many times? That doesn't look like the front of a stadium, does it? Or a stadium. This looks completely different. Doesn't look quite... Well, no, it could be like It could be. Looks like a fancy hotel. I don't know.
And I always seem to like lopsided stadiums for some reason. It does allow for some decent views for those sitting high up in the main stand. Totally Wicked Stadium, home of St. Helens.
Totally Wicked Stadium. Must be sponsored.
You might be wondering how it got the name Totally Wicked Stadium.
Yes.
Well, upon seeing the stadium for the first time, Queen Elizabeth II exclaimed, "Wow! They told me there was nothing to see in St. Helens, but this stadium is totally f***ing wicked, innit?" They were absolutely chuffed to hear such a compliment, so they named the stadium after it.
I like it.
They did obviously have to omit the swearing for legal reasons, but I agree with the Queen. It has a flashy exterior, I love the hits of red, and on the inside it's just as good. I like how on 3 sides of the ground there is a sizable gap between the roof canopy and the seats, which allows for views of outside the stadium.
It looks like a stadium from inside and out. Unlike the previous 2 that you can look at one side of the stand and it looks like a shopping centre or something like that. Whereas all the way around, this is a stadium. And although it's more or less only one tier, you're close to the action. It's airy, but still, you can see and you've got really good views. Yeah, I like this.
Bellevue, home of Wakefield Trinity.
This, on the other hand.
The Queen wasn't as complimentary with this one, but she's always been a bit of a snob. So they took a quote from the French Minister for Sport, who said he got a beautiful view from his seat, which in French is belle vue. That may have been a while ago, or a fabrication, because nowadays it's a little rough around the edges. But
the problem with this one is you don't even get a good view. I'm sorry if you're a Wakefield fan, I'm sorry. But this doesn't even look like a good view. This is the sort you'd get in the Evo Sticks League in football. Like below the conference. Maybe the atmosphere is good if they get plenty of people in. And I don't want to sound harsh because I said I know money can be tight in these grounds, and I'm assuming Wakefield aren't a huge club. Obviously, they're not a huge club with the size of the stadium, but maybe it gets a really good atmosphere. I don't know. I'm not trying to be offensive, but yeah, this is a complete contrast to some of the others for sure.
But it does have plenty of character. It has one fairly standard seated stand, 2 terraces, and then to the south it's got these interesting buildings.
What is that?
There are plans to upgrade the stadium soon to give it a much needed facelift and slight increase to its modest capacity. I look forward to seeing it.
That looks, if they do that drawing of it looks really nice. That would make a complete difference. Really, really would. That looks really good. I don't think I'd want to be one of the houses around the outside though while it gets built.
Halliwell Jones Stadium, home of the Warrington Wolves. The stadium has a very white exterior with some brickwork lower down, and consists of a U-shaped section as well as one detached terrace.
Like I said, it just feels like they haven't finished it off. It's like they forgot to finish, those 2 corners. And don't get me wrong, if it was just these 3, that's lovely. I think that's a real nice. It looks like a stadium, as I said about the other one just now, about St Helens. I think it looks like a stadium from wherever you're watching, from wherever you're standing. But it just feels like they've forgotten to do those 2 corners, or ran out of money.
This is because when the stadium was first built, it was just 4 individual stands. But the corners of the eastern stand were filled in about a decade ago. We've seen a couple of grounds in this league with a terrace behind the 2 ends, but to see a stand along the sideline that is completely made up of terracing in a modern stadium like this is quite rare. The last one had it, I know, but that was far from being modern.
No, that's nice.
DW Stadium, home of the Wigan Warriors. This one's like a slightly larger version of Leigh Sports Village.
I'm sure they share the DW with the football team.
Well, actually it was built first, so the other way around. But it has a similar facade, a single-tiered stand on each side, and even an athletics track next door. Except there's no terrace at this ground. Perhaps because it's shared with Wigan Athletic and football clubs tend to be less inclined to have a terrace.
I think that stand, and possibly, I think all of them are fairly steep. And that's fairly high up, isn't it? That's a lot of seats. But actually, where it's so steep, you will be able to see really good views. So that's okay.
But yeah, it's an excellent ground to end with.
There we go. There are the Super League stadiums for 21-22. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe. If you want, you can always dislike. I don't care. You can dislike. Make sure you check out the VR videos where I look at the stadiums in VR, and there's a fair few of them now. My favourite's definitely Melbourne Cricket Ground. The ones in South Africa were amazing stadiums. Croke Park, amazing stadium. So make sure you go check out that playlist as well, and I will catch you next time.